The PlayStation 4 has been built on incredible exclusives, and 2018 has been a real banner year for the console. Shadow of the Colossus started the year, God of War was arguably the best game of this generation, Detroit Become Human was very good, and of course we're coming up on the release of Spider-Man. That was 2018, and now we're looking ahead to 2019 and beyond, and while many of you are looking forward to The Last of Us Part 2 and Death Stranding, there's another exclusive that has slowly but surely been building up in anticipation, and that is of course the latest game from Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima. We were wondering for a while what Sucker Punch was working on. They've crafted some very successful franchises. Sly Cooper was great, and more recently they've done the Infamous games, and personally speaking I thought the two Infamous games on the PlayStation 3 were absolutely fantastic, and given they were early on in the recent explosion of open world games, they were very well designed titles. Of course Infamous also had a PlayStation 4 release with Infamous Second Son, however that game wasn't as well received by critics, fans, and me alike. I could point to the fact that that was a very early PS4 title releasing back in early 2014, just a few months after the launch of the PS4, and to me it did seem like a little bit rushed, but it was still a very good game, and given the fact that I would consider that game disappointing, that kind of tells you how high of a threshold I view Sucker Punch at. Since that time, Sucker Punch has put out the standalone expansion to that game and Infamous First Light, but for a while they were very quiet, and now we know that they are moving to a brand new IP, Ghost of Tsushima, which was revealed back at Paris Games Week in 2017. And the game also had its massive gameplay reveal back at E3, and that's when you saw gamers really be captivated by the title. I think coming out of E3, yes, The Last of Us Part 2 looked fantastic, but that's Naughty Dog and it's kind of what we expected. Many left kind of underwhelmed by Death Stranding, and Spider-Man was a game we already knew a ton about. While it looked great, we already knew about it. So by almost default, Ghost of Tsushima became that standout game from the show that really surprised people. And it absolutely shined when it needed to, and what I think is incredible, and you'll notice this with several Sony studios, is Sucker Punch had already created two franchises that were already relatively successful, and they could have settled by producing more games in those respective franchises. Not to make this a console war thing, but it does kind of suck that on the Xbox side, we constantly see Halo and Gears of War regurgitated. While those games are good, it's great to see that with these Sony first-party studios, even if the studio has a popular franchise, they'll do something innovative. I can obviously point to Guerrilla Games having Killzone but doing Horizon Zero Dawn, and that turned out fantastically. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the most successful games of this generation commercially and critically. And now with Sucker Punch having Sly and Infamous, they are doing something totally different with Ghost of Tsushima. So I've kind of talked about the context surrounding Ghost of Tsushima without actually talking about the game, and there's so much depth and complexity to the game, so let's do that. The game revolves around the last samurai on the Tsushima Island during the first Mongol invasion of Japan. Set in 1274, you play as Jin Sakai during the first Mongol invasion of Japan. You'll have to master a new fighting style, the Way of the Ghost, to defeat Mongol forces and fight for freedom and independence in Japan. I know we've kind of been memeing about this historical accuracy thing recently with another game. I won't talk crap about that game right now, but with Ghost of Tsushima, that is a very core component of this game. To ensure that this game would be an accurate representation of feudal Japan, Sucker Punch consulted cultural experts and sent an audio team to Japan to record different sounds, including bird songs. By the way, if you want an extra layer to what this game will already offer, if the English voices turn you off a little given the presentation and stylization of the game, you will have the option to switch the audio to Japanese with English subtitles to create an even more authentic experience.
Jin, 遅かったな。
そうことをせくな。ごぼうはどこだ？
もう子供に先を越された。寺でなぶられてる頃合いさ。
行くぞ。
There are also other details and inspiration that add to the aesthetic of the game. Specifically, the game takes from samurai cinema such as Seven Samurai as well as Senjuro. As you can see, there's an insane amount of attention to detail that Sucker Punch has put towards this game, and attention to detail isn't something I would really relate Sucker Punch with. Again, they've created some fantastic games, but with Infamous, it was really about crafting a very fun open world. It wasn't about all these little details and nuances, but with Ghost of Tsushima, you're really getting that, and just based off what we've seen of Ghost of Tsushima thus far, you can see that Sucker Punch as a studio has completely evolved. Gameplay-wise, the game is an action-adventure stealth game that really seems to have a sense of realism. Also, it really focuses on not having too much clutter and going for a minimalistic look. You'll notice that the E3 demo did not have a UI, but the final game will. That was just done so the game will have a bigger cinematic impact, so don't let that fool you. I think a game like this does need a user interface, so honestly that's probably for the best. Battles themselves will allow you to engage in direct confrontation with enemies using weapons such as katanas. You can also chain a series of fatal attacks after you highlight enemies. However, it doesn't have to be just a direct approach. You can also use stealth and evade enemies and take a more silent approach. I feel like this has been the case with a lot of games. You can either go guns blazing or swords blazing in this case, or you could take a more silent approach, and it looks like Ghost of Tsushima will once again fall under that category, but with the style of game that it is, considering it's not your typical shooter, considering we don't see many samurai games, for this game having that go swords blazing or take a more silent approach, I think that does add a more unique feel just on the basis of what this game is. And think about this, if you watched that E3 demo that we saw a few months ago and you were enamored by that, that was just a side quest, not even a main story mission, and you could see such a crazy amount of detail in it. So if that's what we're getting out of side content, I really want to know how the main story missions will be like. The bar seems to have been set very high, and hopefully sometime soon we see gameplay of main story missions, because I think the best has yet to come in terms of gameplay that we're gonna see out of this game. And the mission itself we saw at E3 concluded with a fight, and what was so awesome about it from a gameplay sense is it's not your typical big fight in an open world game. With a lot of these open world games, yes, they are gigantic games, but once you get to those pivotal moments, once you get to those major battles, it has you enclosed in a certain area and you can only fight in that area. Well, with Ghost of Tsushima specifically for this mission, the battle itself was set in the open world. You'll see various reinforcements coming in, and that adds a more natural feel to the game. I doubt every major fight in Ghost of Tsushima will be like that. I think that's just impossible to pull off, but if they do, more power to them. But I can definitely appreciate it when they can implement that.
Hear them coming? That's our enemy.
And outside of gameplay and story, one of the main things you'll notice about Ghost of Tsushima is, of course, from a technical sense. I think we've said it so many times, but from a technical standpoint, it is actually insane how these exclusives keep topping each other. And what's funny about this is we just had God of War earlier this year. That was a technical marvel, but more of a contained experience. Marvel's Spider-Man is technically impressive as well, and that's set in an open world. And now we have Ghost of Tsushima, which once again, an open world, but based on what we've seen, technically a step above Spider-Man as well. I've talked about this theory before, but with these PS4 exclusives, it really seems like a case of iron sharpening iron. Because while all of these studios aren't directly working with one another, when one of these games are released and received the way they are generally received, you imagine it motivates the other studios to think, man, we have to get our game at or beyond that benchmark that a God of War has set, that a Spider-Man might set, that an Uncharted 4 set back in 2016. Now you're bringing out a game in 2018, 2019, and the expectations are going to be so much higher, and there's so much pressure on these studios. But it seems like with these Sony first-party studios, they always thrive under that pressure, and I imagine the same case with Ghost of Tsushima and Sucker Punch. I can go on and rave about how awesome of a studio I think Sucker Punch is, and I do because I really think they deserve it. They really aren't heralded in the same league as a Naughty Dog, a Santa Monica, or Guerrilla Games. However, in terms of delivering quality titles and always innovating, they are absolutely awesome at what they do, and I think after the release of Ghost of Tsushima, they'll start getting more praise as one of the best game studios in the world today. That's about all we know about Ghost of Tsushima so far. You're probably wondering, so when are we going to be able to play the game? Well, that's still up in the air. If I had to speculate, with Days Gone being an early 2019 title, specifically in February of 2019, I imagine The Last of Us Part 2 will be a mid-2019 title. The first Last of Us was a June 2013 title, I believe. Hopefully, Ghost of Tsushima rounds out the 2019 exclusive lineup as a late 2019 game, but I wouldn't be all too surprised if it ends up as an early 2020 title. That's gonna wrap up this video, and we want to hear what you guys think. Are you excited for Ghost of Tsushima? Are you still not completely yet sold? I don't know how you couldn't be sold on this game. It's so unique. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's coming from Sucker Punch. It really has all the elements to be another masterclass exclusive. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Tu overlaat nå.
This video is sponsored by the fine folk over at SCD Keys. On this channel, we're always talking about saving money and getting great deals, and that's what you can do by picking up a $50 PlayStation Store card from SCD Keys. If you head over to their website, link is down below, and search for a $50 PlayStation Store card, you'll find it. Go ahead and add it to your card, and use our specialized promo code GC3 to save 3% on your order. That'll bring the cost of the card down to $46.64. You can check out and choose your method of payment. Your key will show up on your account, and boom, just like that, you got a $50 PSN card a little bit cheaper. Not only do they have great deals on PlayStation Store credit, they also have Windows 10 and other software heavily discounted, and you can get great deals on those as well. Again, check out the link to SCD Keys in the description box below.